And even the media, you guys have been very favorable towards the president. It's funny to me that they've never caught you smoking, but they somehow always catch you with your shirt off.
Some observations from Wanda Sykes. Welcome back to CNN's live coverage of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. President Obama will not be the only one telling jokes tonight. The Correspondents' Dinner featuring comedian Larry Wilmore, which is a familiar face to all fans of Comedy Central. So how do you make jokes about a president when he's sitting right next to you?
This is true. They're replacing Andrew Jackson, who was a notoriously pro-slavery president, as well as the most bloodthirsty racist in the Jackson Five. It's true.
Larry Wilmore knows it is way easier to win the nightly show crowd than woo what could be the fiercest, most fickle audience in showbiz/Washington.
It is the most narcissistic room ever invented. Journalists, politicians, and Hollywood. And the president. There you go. That room could explode just from the narcissism alone.
But when it comes to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the explosion is worth the risk.
It's something that I really wanted to do. And if I did it, I really did want to do it for this president. And I thought the time might have expired for that. So to sneak in there at the end is very cool.
What's happening, everybody?
The last such dinner for the first black president, starring an African-American comic.
Let's be clear about what blackface actually is.
Wilmore knows it is historic.
You said you like the president. You say, though, you didn't support him because of his policies.
Correct.
You supported him because he was black.
Because of the policy that he is black.
How's he delivered on that?
I think he's been excellent on it. I think he's actually increased the policy of blackness over the past year and a half, I would say. He has released the blackened.
A classic answer from the 54-year-old comic, both deliberately funny and deadly serious.
If it feels like the nightly show is getting a little repetitive, I totally agree. I mean, at this point, my writing staff just has to fill in the names. Right? Sure. They barely even show up to work anymore.
15 months after he took over the time slot on Comedy Central vacated by Stephen Colbert.
How's it going?
The New York Times says Wilmore is less preoccupied with humor than anyone else who's ever occupied a mock news chair.
Sometimes I'm not afraid to have to provide some glibness in a moment and to tell a story and to find the humanity in the story and get the comedy out of that. Sometimes it works the other way around. It appears that Officer Slager immediately began the cover-up of Walter Scott's death. When you're covering a story about a man getting shot in the back by a cop as he's trying to run away, there's nothing funny in that. How do you cover something like that? How many of these murders aren't caught on camera?
People got their panties in a bunch.
Yeah, people were upset about that, and then you say, like...
He applies that same sometimes frank, sometimes funny take to his views about the election, which are admittedly liberal.
Would you say your show trends left? Trends more pro-democratic policies and politicians?
I would say probably, especially with the issues that we tend to take on, because a lot of them are cultural issues and that kind of thing.
I want to throw out a candidate's name. There are 5 left, and I want to know if you have a first impression or a word that you associate with them. When I say Bernie Sanders, you say?
I say scrappy.
I say Ted Cruz, you say?
I say creepy.
I say Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton? I say trying to find it.
John Kasich?
John Kasich, I would say, oh man.
This is the problem with John Kasich right now. A lot of people are struggling.
That is the problem. That is the problem.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, unbelievable in every way.
Black people supporting Trump?
But when it comes to the Correspondents' Dinner, Wilmore is promising all jokes delivered with the skill and experience of more than 20 years acting, writing, and producing on shows, ranging from In Living Color to The Bernie Mac Show.
I have a job.
To starring as the senior black correspondent on The Daily Show.
Larry, what do you say to those people?
Oh, I don't know, John. I would say they should probably go themselves.
And this weekend, all targets are fair game.
Take a look at the whole Obama-Saudi Arabia thing, too.
Including, or especially, the president.
No free pass because this is his last dinner.
I have to keep it 100. Come on, man. I mean, and this is the last dinner. What are they going to do? There's not enough time to stick the IRS after me. Very little time. Maybe I shouldn't say that on TV. But that's part of the fun. But it's all good-natured fun. I know
The hardest part, he says, having to follow the president on stage, a president now experienced at telling jokes.
And Donald Trump is here. Still.
Do you think you'll laugh at him, or are you trying not to laugh?
I'll completely laugh.
You don't want to lower expectations?
Well, no. I'll be a great audience for him. Plus, it'll help me not to be too nervous. You get rid of that air. That was funny, Mr. President.
All right, we're back now with our panel, joined this time by CNN political commentator Mark Lamont. Hey, Mark, you've been a panelist on The Nightly Show with Larry Wilmore, and he is a different type of late-night comic. It's not necessarily on a show, joke.
Right, it's not like having a traditional stand-up comedian host the show, and it's also not like Colbert, who's in character for the full time. Instead, like he said, he's somewhat glib at times, he's somewhat serious at times, but he's also flat-out hilarious, and tonight I think we'll see the full range of his comedy skill.
He has said, he told Jake Tapper that told me too, he plans to talk about race tonight. I mean, a lot of his jokes, he admits, on his show are about race. Liz, I imagine that will be, a theme here with the last dinner for the first black president.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that it's always cool when you can get somebody who is a writer and a performer, because when you are writing the material and helping craft it yourself, there's an intrinsic performance quality that comes that's really great.
That's Marissa Meyer right there, who from Yahoo took a pay cut. I think she made over $30 million instead of over $40 million last year. But she still did manage to get to the dinner tonight. I may have those numbers wrong. No, people in the industry love Larry Wilmore just because he worked his way up, as a showrunner behind the scenes. So he appreciates the business of comedy tonight. But it is hard, right? I mean, it is hard for him to get up there after the president, Brad. And he said he's frankly nervous about it.
I think all comedians are nervous to follow the president. I think what Larry has, I think Mark hit on it. He's doing the show every night. So he's very invested each night on what's happening. And so much of these bits are what's happening, what's topical, what's relevant. So I think Larry's going to have a big night. I think he's going to do great.
Can you go too far?
I think, yeah, absolutely. I think there is like a line there. You can't be too kind of out there. I think that's why, they'd probably like to have someone like Chris Rock host one night, but that he might be a little too controversial for them. The room is inherently so strange. I remember going to the dinner and Richard Myers, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was my date, and Pamela Anderson was at our table. And it's like this amazing, and Kate Baldwin was saying this earlier.
I call that Tuesday, by the way. That's like Tuesday at my house, but go ahead.
Right, it's like the most bizarre thing. You see these George Lucas, and then like a congressman from Minnesota, and then a staffer. And it's just that it's a very strange juxtaposition of people. That's what makes it so interesting.
That's Eric Trump behind us right now. The other Trump son we heard from Donald Trump Jr.
Is he
earlier.
with the other one's wife, or is that his
wife? That's his wife.
Yeah, I don't know what you're suggesting. That's his wife. Come on.
I don't know.
Mark, I tried to press Larry on this, and he told me he would make fun of the president.
Yeah.
He actually admires the president. Larry Wilmore flat out says this. He admires the president a lot. He thinks he's an historic figure, and he does poke fun of him at his show, but he's not the most frequent target or the target he hits the hardest. Don't you think that it is owed to America tonight on the president's last Correspondents' Dinner to have some of the best satire involving
Absolutely.
the president?
It's his patriotic duty to mock the president relentlessly. I think this is a tougher president to make fun of, though, because many presidents you can make fun of bodily features that you can make. Many presidents you could do that with. Also, he's so self-deprecating. He took on early on the stuff about being Muslim undercover, about being a terrorist, about his birth certificate, about being grandiose, about being arrogant. And so some of that stuff is harder to jab at him with because he's already done the bit by the time you get up to the stage. I think what you'll hear a lot of from Larry Wilmore are jokes about his unmitigated blackness right now. That he's just going out there saying things he didn't say before, using slang he's never used before, and doing engaging in executive orders that he's never done before. That's going to be a joke.
Is it hard to make fun of this president?
No. I feel like good satire comes from talking about the policies and the hypocrisies, and I think that any president of the United States has come up in a in a system full of money, in a system full of favors, in a system full of many things. I mean, I'm a political satirist, you know. One of the first things Obama did in his administration was go back on his prescription drug promise, right? So, like, I make jokes about that. So there are things, tons of things.
But I just mean in the last year we're running out of stuff.
No, but
years not particularly embarrassing. Like 2 years ago, yeah, this has not been a particularly bad year.
And you're comparing him to people who are measuring their manliness on the campaign.
That's what I'm
right?
saying.
So,
the comedic gold is on the other side.
Exactly right. That is correct.
And the healthcare website works now as far as so it's a few years since that. All right, guys, stick around. There's a lot more to talk about. No doubt many of tonight's jokes, and Liz just was focusing on it right there, will feature the 2016 presidential race. Coming up, why some people might argue the race itself is nothing but a joke. We'll also go back to Sarah Murray, who was working the red carpet as all the stars arrived.